What is up, everyone? I'm Dr. Ray Gorman, owner of Engage Movement, a company that helps performance physical therapists and other performance providers break free from the time trap, make more money in less time with what we call the retention programming model. I'm joined today with my client, Joby Phillip. Joby, it's great to have you on. I'd love to start by giving you the opportunity to um, tell the people watching just kind of like what was going on when we first started working together. What has it been? Probably like 6, 7 months ago now.
I think so about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere in that time frame, and a lot of change has happened.
hmm
But I'd love to kind of hear your story and tell the audience a little bit about kind of what you do, where you are, and a little bit about your company.
Yeah. So my company is Fortify Health and Performance, and I'm based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so it's a hybrid practice. So see people in person, and then also have again the remote programming
Yeah.
option, coaching option for clients. And so um, yeah, as far as where I was when we started working together, I had been trying to kind of do things on my own. I think it had been about a year at that point, and I had started out as a trying to do an online
Mm,
coaching,
yeah.
um, and then kind of realized a few months into that that it wasn't really for me, and I was kind of struggling with that. And so I thought, let me try to go more of kind of the blended route of doing in person plus remote, because I definitely saw the value of remote, and I wanted that time freedom and things like that. And so but at the same time, I also didn't want to have just a desk job. And so
Yeah.
so I missed kind of that in-person client interaction. So I thought, going hybrid or blended would be a good solution for me. And so I found a gym space and kind of set up shop there. And I was doing that kind of on my own, and just kind of struggling and felt stuck, and was getting information from a lot of different sources.
Mm,
Like I was trying to do as much research as I could, but also getting information um, from yeah, different people online, and just reading everything I could, and again, just didn't really know who to listen to or what approach to take. Um, and yeah, so I had been following you for a while, and
yeah.
heard about kind of your process, and that got me intrigued, and ultimately I kind of pulled the trigger to move forward with that, and yeah, it's been great.
And I'm glad that you did. I hope you are as well. Obviously, we wouldn't be having this chat if you weren't, right? But two important distinctions there. One, I want to make sure it's clear that when Joby says he's operating under a hybrid model, we mean in person and a virtual offer to supplement the in person opportunity. There's a lot of clinics out there that run hybrid and refer to that as cash and insurance. Um, and the other thing that I want to kind of highlight there is this is such a common problem that we see in the space where you have all these opinions coming in, you have all this advice coming in, but none of it really lacks context, right? Like none of it really solves the specific problem that you are going through. And I know that you had worked with somebody a little bit more formally in the past and didn't really get what you were looking for out of that from a result, right? That company probably gets great results with clients, but for you, you just kind of consistently felt stuck.
Mhm.
What do you think was the thing for you that you kind of felt stuck on, if that makes sense?
Um, yeah, so I think, well, I think number one, um, going the online route first, and like doing online only, and just realizing, especially for someone that like, uh, social media wasn't something that I tended to use a lot in terms of
Mhm.
posting and stuff like that. And so just um, getting myself uh, to do that was just a chore, and it was difficult, and building my audience and stuff like that was just a lot of work, and was not the type of work that I wanted to be doing necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big part of it, was just figuring out what was a better fit for me in terms of the model of the business. And then yeah, I think in terms of feeling stuck, I think it was um, just feeling like I had to do all of these different things, and always feeling like I wasn't doing enough of
Mm,
anything. And then I think just really realizing what I needed to focus on, and especially for me being having gone in person, I think a lot of the success that I saw then was in forming those local partnerships and
yeah.
relationships, and networking with people. And yeah, I think just your guidance in just helping me know that I was on the right track in doing those things, even when it felt at the time like it might not have been
Yeah.
very much fruit. But just knowing that, like, okay, that's what I need to focus my efforts on right now. And it's definitely paying its dividends now, and it's cool to see. But so I think, yeah, a lot of that was just like, again, directing my focus towards what was going to move the needle the most for me, and kind of letting some of those other things that I'd heard other people talk about, just realizing that, okay, that's fine, but maybe that's not what I need to focus on, or
Yeah.
get down on myself if I'm not doing those things. Um, yeah, so I think that was a big part of it for me.
It's really easy to sell the dream of online business, right? Because like it makes so much sense. Like there's all these people out there, they have a problem. Your audience is essentially unlimited. Like you don't need to be in a physical location, but it's really difficult. It's really hard. And one of the conversations that we have with our clients who come to us, because we do help people who want to build more of an online business rather than like you just being in being blended, right, where you're kind of doing both, is we tell them like, look, this is a longer ramp up than if you were to start in person. And I feel like there's not a lot of that message going around of like, one, your messaging needs to be way more dialed in online than it does in person, right? Because there are so many people out there, you have to really narrow in on that funnel on who specifically you are talking to. Two, you need to take way more opportunities of putting yourself out there, experimenting, getting kicked in the face over and over and over again by posting content that falls flat or doesn't land with your audience, or, maybe even gets you some hate from your peers. And a lot of people are just there, they don't want to go that route. The second thing that you said, I think, is super important. There's this period in any business that is, it's kind of referred to as like this messy middle, right? And everybody wants clarity. Everybody wants a crystal clear path. And our job is to paint that, but to guide people alongside when the waters get muddy, right? When you're doing things that aren't yet yielding a result, but we know from our experience of helping other clients get through that consistency is kind of key to helping you get through that middle and helping you break through the other side, which I think you've done a fantastic job on. What has it kind of been like working together, and maybe what are some of the things that have stood out to you about the experience of working with us over kind of the last 6 months?
Um, yeah, I think probably the thing that stands out is just the level of support um, in terms of yeah, just I think so with the weekly retained calls,
Hmm.
which are like the group coaching calls, and then now that I'm in the phase where we're having our bi-weekly one-on-one calls.
Hmm.
There's just so much opportunity to ask questions and to get feedback and to work through things that maybe I'm stuck on or have questions about. And it's and there's enough space and time to like really get all of the context to give
Yeah.
me you know, precise and kind of directed feedback and advice versus something kind of general. And so I think that's been really helpful is just to have, again, very specific feedback and guidance in terms of what I need to do in specific situations. Um, and yeah, again, like I said, just giving me the overarching kind of uh, plan and framework in terms of like what I need to focus on
Yeah.
has been super helpful for me.
Well, I kind of feel like if we're going to tell you how valuable one-on-one support is for your clients and your patients, we need to express that as well and provide some one-on-one support for you rather than just lump you in with a group, let you kind of sit back and hope that your question gets answered because maybe there's a personal reason why you don't want to ask it. Maybe there is not enough time for your question to get answered. Maybe the people in your group are, asking lower level questions than you typically want to ask. But one of the areas that you specifically have excelled in, I think, has been all of the effort that you've put into the sales process, right? I think for the most part, like 99% of the physical therapists who kind of go into the cash space are there for a reason because I think their skill set already supersedes kind of what they're able to do in the traditional clinic. That doesn't mean that there aren't great clinicians in a traditional setting. It just means you see things a little bit differently. But the bias tends to be investing in more clinical skills, not investing in our weaknesses, which are sales and marketing. Could you talk a little bit about like the difference that the sales training has kind of made for you? And if I'm correct, I mean you're at almost like 8 to 10x in 6 months from when we started. Is that about right?
That's correct. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. So,
not a that's not a small variable.
right.
Right? We're talking going from, a four figure to a five figure. Like that's a physical therapist dream in some cases.
Yeah. No, it's been huge. And yeah, you're right. Like the sales training, I think in my mind has been the biggest kind of area of need for me when I came in is just I lacked so much confidence in having those sales conversations um, and while I still have a lot of work to do there, like I've just gotten so much more comfortable, so much more confident going into those conversations and having that framework and knowing how to kind of navigate those conversations and guide and direct them and to respond to objections and to do it in a way that again doesn't feel like I'm being salesy, doesn't feel like I'm trying to
Yeah.
push something on them that they don't need, but really just trying to understand what's holding them back and trying to help them and kind of coach them through that. And so I think yeah, again, just the level of support and training and the framework and the scripts and everything that you've provided has been super helpful.
Everybody shies away from the sales component. But without the sales component, you are actually withholding your ability to help that client, right? If you can't sell your services, you can't provide the level of care that you want to provide because you have no clients. And the thing that we commonly see is providers who are struggling with sales process, like they don't really have one dialed in. Sales scripting, they don't really have one, and so they don't know where they're going wrong in the conversation, right? They don't know how we can get on track and what tweaks we can make. Um, what they end up doing is lowering their prices. And then they just compound the problem, right? Because now they're at a lower price point. They're still closing at the same rate. And they get to this point where it's like, this just isn't working. I think I'm going to shut up, close up shop, and just go get a job again. I think a lot of PTs who go into the cash space, they think the clinical skill is enough, and it's just not. Now, one thing I do want to touch on for you is, knowing that you have a wife, you have two kids who are pretty young, um, doing what you're doing can be seen as risky,
Mhm.
right? It can be perceived as like, oh my gosh, there's so much risk associated with investing in coaching, investing in mentorship. Like, what is life like now, not just for you, but for you and your family, since you took that risk, like you dove in, you invested the time, you invested the resources. What's kind of life like now for you and the crew?
Yeah, I mean, um, I think one of the biggest changes has just been um, my ability to like um, um, how do I want to explain this? I think it's been just like feeling less anxious about the business and feeling like, okay, I'm in a place where like it feels like I've got a system now, and I've got an actual business that like feels like it's sustainable,
Hmm.
and feels like I have some of the right channels to like continue to grow and get clients, and things like that in place, where I'm just not worrying about things as much, and that's just opened me up, um, in terms of just my mental emotional energy to like when
Yeah.
I am with my family, to be present with them and to enjoy time with them, and yeah, not have all of these like high stress anxious kind of conversations about what are we going to do, and all of that I think has been super freeing, so I think that's a big part of it, and then obviously the financial piece of just um, having that, yeah, stability, to
Yeah.
know that we're going to be okay, financially. Um, yeah, I think those are definitely some significant, um, changes in terms of what life is like now.
It's really hard to show up as your best self, as a partner, as a parent, when you're worried about what you're going to do tomorrow to, bring in revenue, to put food on the table, to pay your bills, right? To alleviate some of that burden from your partner. And I've worked in really high stress, high anxiety situations before where like I wasn't the best version myself. And now running my own business, I thought it would be like that again. And it's not, right? Because I have control over that. I have control over those decisions. I have control over the amount of work that I put in, which yields me the result. And I think a lot of people sacrifice really a big portion of their life and a big portion of their career to continue playing it safe, in a traditional job. Nothing wrong with that, right? That profile fits a lot of people a lot better. But if you're just staying there for safety, to me, that's where the risk lies, right? Like going back to the traditional clinic is where the risk lies for me because I know what the ceiling is like over there and I'm not happy with that. Like that's not what I want my life to be with that earning potential. What do you think, what's something that you would tell others who are maybe watching this and are in a situation where you were, 6.5 months ago, where they're not bringing in the revenue that they want in their business. They're getting hit with, cost objections, dare to say value objections for how they're presenting their offer. They are spending all their time just kind of frustrated and maybe even contemplating going back and getting a job. What would you kind of tell people watching that who are maybe feeling that way?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I would say, number one, I feel like if I can do it, anyone can do it. Um, but number two, um, yeah, it's scary. It is, it does feel like a risk, and
Yeah.
but I know I can just speak for myself in that, like, taking that leap and making that investment has been huge, and I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for that. And so, um, yeah, I mean, just like in all other areas of life, it's often the thing we want is on the other side of taking some risk and taking that leap. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think, um, yeah, I get it. Like this is my second stint at kind of opening a cash-based PT practice, and I did go back to the clinic, and for me, it just wasn't like, I just realized after going back, like, okay, this is for sure not it for me. And so, like, you could go back to something safe and comfortable, and maybe you're okay with that. But if you're like me, and I think you just realize that that's not for you, then I think it is going to take investing and getting some help and some
Yeah.
guidance to get you from being stuck to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's putting that ego aside and admitting that, like, the strongest thing that you can do is get support, right? Like, when I have struggles in my business, I used to be the do it myself person who would, trip over dollars to save pennies. Like, that was what I did. Um, Try to find the best deal, try to, waste all this time when really, like, I should have just invested in the start, but I didn't have that mindset yet. It's something that I had to cultivate. Um, so if you are out there thinking this is risky, I shouldn't do it. Um, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel uncomfortable when you are facing that risk, when you're facing the decision. It's not okay to shy away from it just because you're scared or because you're uncomfortable, right? Those things mean you care. So instead of shying away, just do it uncomfortable. Like, do it afraid, take the leap and prove to yourself. And there's one question that people always ask, right? Like, who are the people who do well in your program and who are the people who don't? And the answer is always the same, and I think any coach or mentor will tell you this. The people who do well are the ones who implement. They're the ones who can make short-term sacrifices for long-term gain, right? They're the people who will experiment with their sales script and lose 3 opportunities so that they can close hundreds after the third loss. And then there's the people who don't do well, and they're the ones who don't implement, don't make any change. They fall back into the same safe mechanism that wasn't yielding them result in the beginning. And then they blame the coaching program, right? The magic is in the implementation. You all know that if your client doesn't do the work in physical therapy, they don't get the results. It's no different in business. Um, Joby, anything else that you kind of wanted to end on, or if not, where can people find you? Should they have questions, want to browse your social media, which has really improved, man. You've done a really good job on social media. And maybe your website as well if they're interested.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is jobyphilip.dpt. So you can DM me there, or my website is www.fortifyhealthperformance.com.
Awesome, man. Well, Joby, thank you so much, dude. I think that it's important that we share, client stories like this for other people to see, because that's ultimately sometimes what people need is they need a little lended confidence. So thank you for sharing your story, man. Thank you for being a great client. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the remainder of the year has in store for you.
Of course, man. Happy to help.